Good evening and welcome to a double dose of Kitchen Conversations. I'm so glad that you're with us here tonight. Al is in the house running the sound. Thank you, Al, for being here and always having that beautiful smile of yours. So, we are here tonight to celebrate, to love our history. So many people have asked, why do we need to know about our past? And it's uncomfortable and it doesn't feel good. So tonight we will dive into that. I thought I too was on that fence that I don't need to know what happened in the past. I just got to move forward. But I have found that the past has a divine energy and light of its own, and within it is a healing presence. So let's take the breath in right now. We take the breath in and get ready for what is coming forth tonight. Get ready for the divine magnificence that is pouring through. So each and every person around this world that is involved with living, know there is a past that has shown up for them, that is a great teacher, has been one that has pushed them out of their comfort zone into a greater expression. The past is not our enemy. It is here to birth us to a higher revelation of who and what we can be. So in that knowing, I just bless our divine past. I bless our history. I bless the truth that each and every one of us are on point and that we are here to be this divine celebration, this divine and unique emanation of spirit. And with that, I'll have us get ready for our theme song. Well, you better listen, sister and brother, 'cause if you do, you will hear the voices that are calling across the years. And they're calling across the ocean, and they're calling across the land. And they will until we all understand that none of us are free. None of us are free. None of us are free. If one of us isn't changed, none of us are free. Well, there are people in the dark 'cause they can't see the light. If you don't say it's wrong, that says it's right. We got to give to one another, show each other that we care. Get the message out loud and clear that none of us are free. None of us are free. None of us are free. If one of us isn't changed, none of us are free. None of us are free. None of us are free. Yes, none of us are free. So with that being said, get ready as we get ready to step into this evening's divine celebration with our first video. Yeah. That was just a little taste. We are one, to recognize that this oneness that we are. It also shows a oneness of our history. It shows an American history that for so long has created this myth, lie about our history. And so tonight, I'll just go through a few of not the myths or the lies, but to show you how it is not just in one area, that this is not about just Black Lives Matter. This is about the human race matters. And I don't mean that lightly. Black Lives Matter, absolutely, is important because people of color are getting killed for ridiculous things at an amazing rate. And it's alarming, and that it's still happening. I was looking at a documentary, and they made a phrase to this point that change is inevitable, but with change, the fear of the change makes those that do not want the change rise up in inhumane ways. I was blown away. I was like, wow, that's amazing. And so we'll see that historians, people that study history, the beauty of history, the awareness that every culture has a history. And America, we are a melting pot of beautiful cultures that have histories, that have buildings and traditions that need to be celebrated, and we all need to be aware of each other. And so that our history doesn't scare us. Somebody said yes. But our history wakes us up to how we can be better, how we can be more informed, how we can decide things that, yes, I'm for this, or no, I'm not for this, and then make steps to move forward in making change in the world. Because without us, there is no change. We are the change that we are waiting for. So as I was taking this journey, and on the slide that I showed you, it had Native American people, Asian Islanders. We'll go through the list, but with Native American peoples, it says, American history begins not with the first European settlers or the signing of the Declaration of Independence, but with the people who lived here for centuries before. Centuries before. Native Americans, their diverse cultures, traditions, and histories expand our lens of what should be preserved and challenged us to think beyond the classic definition of historic preservation. You know, it's overlooked far too many times that our Native American brothers and sisters, that they were here first in America. And we have a history that almost excludes them, or we characterize them as less than human. And even still to today, I believe that some of the reservations don't have running water, don't have indoor plumbing. These are things that we can change. We can change these things as a people. Everyone. We have the technology. We have everything that's needed for this. But because we have a history of trying to dominate those that we think are less or those that we say are not of human essence, that there is this fear that they must be treated differently. That's still happening today. Today. So we want to look at our history, all of it. This is American history. And I don't want to call it good, bad, ugly. I want to call it the opportunity to awaken to a new history where we don't continue to repeat the same. And so with that, hearts open. And some of it is horrible. But is it not horrible if we're doing it in 2021? Is this 21 or 22? 22. 2022. I'm working on my taxes, so my brain is a little. Asian Pacific Islanders, American Heritage Stories. Throughout much of American history, Asians and Pacific Islanders have left an indelible mark on the events and places that mark up our common experience. We celebrate their contributions and natural treasures. We support the Seattle's Panama Hotel, Southern California Historic Wintersburg, and Hawaii, a Waikiki War Memorial. Eddie Wong, he was the former director of the Angel Islander Immigration Station Foundation, said this: being Asian American means wearing many layers of identity. At first glance, a man of Asian ancestry. At first spoken word, an American. At deeper reflection, a person of color in America. At the core, a person who seeks peace and social justice. As I was taking this journey through this, I thought there's a common denominator. There is a common denominator that we're all sharing, that the rage of critical race theory, which is a legal theory, but it proves a point of systemic racism. It's not just with black people, it's with all people of color. And we are seeing throughout the overall picture, and not just people of color, if you are different, you're a part of that in some way or capacity. We can't run from our history and use phrases that, oh, it's depressing, it makes me sad. Because then that's allowing that history to continue. You know, in our life when we meet a challenge, and there are times when the challenge kicks you on your booty. But there comes a time that you're either pulled by the vision or pushed by the pain. But change does take place. We move on to our Latino and Hispanic heritage. Hispanic and Latino Americans have long and rich histories in the United States, captured in such a wide-ranging places from the 17th century, the Palace of the Governors in New Mexico, in the mid-century modern Miami Marine Stadium in Florida. Dive into the stories, these varied histories, cultures, contributions that lead to how our past is influencing our present. And I thought this was a beautiful story that I'm going to share with you. Once again, recognizing that this is all of us, that we're all in this together. This story is shared by a lady by the name of Mrs. Petro. And she says, in the 1960s and 70s, La Alma Lincoln Park which was located in Portland, Oregon, I'm sorry, was the epicenter for the Chicano movement, in Denver. So in the 60s and 70s, the La Alma Lincoln Park was the epicenter for the Chicano movement in Denver, which fought against segregation, discrimination, and unequal education, among other issues. As a youngster, Ms. Petro tagged along with her mom, who was an activist, marching. She walked out of her school during the famous West High School blowouts of the 1969, championed civil rights as a brown beret, and volunteered to support children in early education programs. In La Alma, she recalls neighborhoods cared for and celebrated Alma. It's La Alma. In La Alma, she recalls neighborhoods cared for and celebrated one another. Neighborhoods coming together. Sometimes they'd even bring their chairs out onto the sidewalk and they'd barbecue and dance, and neighbors would create this dance party right there on the street. There are those of us that think that the heritage of Latino and Hispanic Americans is one of drug dealers and pushers and pimps because of ignorance that's been spewed about a beautiful culture that has added so much to our American history. Please understand that America doesn't become America without everyone who has helped to bring it to this place. And that includes all of our technology, our roads, our agriculture, everything that we have right now. Every culture has participated in some form, some way, some fashion to bring us to this space. This country was not built by one culture. It was built by a melting pot of people. And so we have to keep in mind that when we hear racial slurs about Asian American people, or Asian people, period, Hispanic, Native Americans, that's just ignorance. It's ignorance, plain and simple. And it's so ignorant because we see how it doesn't just sit with one particular culture. We continue to spread it around. We want to mix it up, spread it around. History being taught in school, proper history, true history, will help all young people and everyone understand that this country has been built by all and that we've all contributed. It will help us have a greater appreciation for places throughout our world. A lot of historic buildings and schools that were founded that have gone untaken care of because it may have been a black school or an Asian school or Native American. There is a host of Native American schools that were put underground, for lack of a better word. And that part of our history, you know, we just don't know about it. We didn't know about it. LGBT heritage. I mean, when we look at discrimination, it's everywhere. Every June in cities across the country, parades through the streets bearing rainbow banners in celebration of LGBT pride. The conversation that sometimes gets lost amid the festivities, however, is the true reason behind pride. the commemoration of the 1969 Stonewall riots in New York City's Greenwich Village, a major moment in the gay civil rights movement. It does get lost that there were people that decided enough is enough. I am a human being. I deserve to live, to be, and live my life as I choose without being ridiculed, without being judged. Can you see this divine line of judgment that has been judging race, judging creed, color, all the things that we say that we're not going to, we do. Anything and anyone different from us, we tend to want to put it in a box and control it for fear that it could rub off. I remember the scene from Dorothy Dandridge movie where she's there. She's got to walk through the kitchen. She's there in this hotel, beautiful hotel, and she's there performing. But she can't go through the front door. She's got to go through the kitchen and all of this rigmarole. And they have the scene where she's walking by the swimming pool, and she dips her toe in the pool, and they drain the entire pool. This type of ignorance, we can't continue to allow this lie to live. And when people change the story a little bit and shift it to still create fear and terror, it's still the same thing happening. The toe dipping in the pool, that's going to rub off, that in some crazy way is going to make someone something that they're not. The LGBT community stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender. History has many places, events, and people connected to it. Yet these sites and voices are not always recognized or preserved. We are striving to weave more of these important threads into our culture, narrative, starting with the diverse stories. There have been many houses of worship that were against the LGBT community. And I'm very proud to say that Centers for Spiritual Living, that we are one of the spiritual communities that recognizes that there's love for all, that God is in all, that we are all, and whatever your divine expression is your gift to us. And so it's also been great to see that a lot of the house of worships that did not at first accept that people could be a lesbian or gay or bisexual or transgender or queer, that they have awakened to understand because they're their fathers and daughters and mothers and sisters and cousins and aunts. It's not somebody so far away. It's somebody in your family. And we talk about the love of God. It always baffles me that how can the love of God and hate be in the same box? That people will bomb an entire community. They will kill people for the righteousness of God. I don't know where any righteousness is in that. And so it is a joy to see that more house of worship, more spiritual communities are open and receptive because we help lead the way. You know, someone asked me, why do we need to have this kind of conversation in our spiritual community? Because I don't go to church for that. And we had this beautiful conversation And so I want to say to all, we have this conversation in a spiritual community because we are leaders of changing the world. And without spiritual communities rising up, making note, standing side by side wherever there is a need for more love, more peace, to shine the light where there is not equality. One of the greatest things that we can do as a spiritual community is to be the example of God. And that's not to shy away from things. It is not to spew hate. Hate against hate only equals hate, but it is to absolutely recognize that there is work to be done. And without spiritual communities rising up, making a divine space for uncomfortable conversations, making a space to be able to shine the light and not to glaze over it as though God's not in that. God is in it. And we are being called to stand in it, to rise up to it, to be about this business of waking up and not being afraid, but holding this space of love. This work has called me deeper than any work I've done to be a space of love, because at times I get angry and I don't want to be about love. I want to be about anger. I want to be about let's get them back. And I know that that's not the truth, that that's a human expression that is trying to take jurisdiction. So I have to go again and do my work. But it does not mean that work is to look away, to act as though it is not present, because it is. And so that's why a spiritual community, as a spiritual community, we are empowered to stand and rise up and show love in every place. To be a spotlight where harmony and peace can come, and to be a place that welcomes all. Because if we act as though racism doesn't exist, how can we expect different cultures to want to be a part of something that says you're not even valid? It is our call, it is our duty, it is our divine light to do that. So, as the LGBTQ community, there have been strides that have been made, but there are many, in many ways, still, in many ways, that our history with sexual differences is still out of alignment. That we want to call people that are express love differently perverts has nothing to do with that. Nothing. That's propaganda, fear. I compare life to fruit and trees. We don't have just a rose bush. We have so many different variations of roses. You can't even begin to name them all. The red rose, pink rose, sterling rose, there's a purple rose, there's combination roses, all different types. And why? Because God shows up in every last one of them. Every last one of them. Just like God shows up in every last one of us. So for my brothers and sisters in the LGBTQ community, we see again that history, our history in America, wants to shy away, wants to act as though this community is not a part of American history. Yes, yes. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. And you have created and moved a consciousness forward. And I know the battle's not over. But we're all in this thing together. And so we move to women's history. And I don't know if you know or not, March is the celebration of Women's Month. The accomplishments of women, the recognition of women. And, you know, for those that have an argument that say, oh, well, racism, you know, maybe it does, but it doesn't touch everyone. And yes, it does, in my opinion. We see that the same principles are applied to women. And one of the funny things, as women were trying to get women's rights to vote, initially, the white women did not want to partner with black women or any women of color. The brainwash of separation has been on so many different levels that sometimes we don't see ourselves. So in this month of March of celebrating women, all women of color, all white women, every nationality of woman has contributed to this, to our great America. And just like other nationalities, women have been cast aside as well. For the things that we have done in history, they've been hidden or not preserved. It says, women have a present role in history. Teaching our children real history, true history, is one of the greatest gifts that we can give them, because it will inspire them to think outside the box, to see like, wow, this is what they did then. What can we do now? What can we do now? It's not about suppressing. It's not about judging. It's not about blaming. History is not about that. History is for us to wake us up to a new revelation, to a new life. We leave this world to the next generation. Do we want to continue to leave the same problems, the same results, the same consciousness? I think not. Technology has shown us we're not going back. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah. But we can't go forward right now either, because we are stuck. We're pulling and we're pushing and pulling against one another. And far too often, women's struggle and achievements have been lost, forgotten, or deliberately obscured. Deliberately obscured. I could say that for each and every culture that I've spoken for our Native Americans, for our Asian Pacific Islanders, for our LGBTQ community. Each and every one of them have been obscured. There's been a deliberate intention not to share what these divine communities, what this consciousness has brought to America. We don't want to live in that anymore. That's not what we want to pass on to our children. The fear that they're not enough, the fear that there has to be a number one, a number two, a number three in living, that's not who we want to be. Women's history is women's rights, an essential, indispensable heritage from which we can draw pride, comfort, courage, and a long-range vision. I love this story. Janet Solomon was driving through Pittsburgh, Homewood neighborhood, one day more than 20 years ago, when a large abandoned Queen Anne-style manor house on Apple Street caught her eye. She pulled over, got out, and read the historical plaque outside. This marked her first encounter with the story of the National Negro Opera Company, an organization founded in 1941 by Mary Cardwell Dawson. Dawson is my grandmother's. That's her maiden name. Yeah, Dawson. I just caught that. Wow. That was once headquarters for this building. Miss Solomon was an accountant and wasn't really all that wise and hip on history, didn't really care. But when she saw this old house in Pittsburgh and it was dilapidated and broken down, to recognize, and I didn't know we had a National Negro Opera Company. Wow. Her juices began to turn, and she thought how great this would be to restore this. And so she ended up buying this house, and the bank was happy. Woo! It took time, but she has restored. And when I say she founded Trust Historic, the Trust National Historic Company, which helps people restore, preserve our natural history that's been forgotten. And so they've done things for the Native American and the Asian Pacific Islanders, and for women that have done amazing things in buildings. And so she worked with this company to help restore this national treasure that's a part of American history that we can share with other generations to inspire them. And she purchased it in 2000. Like I said, it took quite a bit of doing, but finally she did. I think it doesn't quote for sure, but I think it was in 2019 that it was restored to its full luster. It says, too often places where significant African American history happened have been unrecognized for the important role they play in the fabric of American history. The fabric of American history. And so we are in the American cultural heritage. Black history, African American history, American history, which all of these have in common. That it is American history, that it is through our diversity, that we are that's what makes us a great nation. And when I see people, and this is my own personal opinion, when I see people wanting to limit the divine expansion of all people to where it is controlled by a one people or a one group, to me, that is a travesty. That will kill a nation. The world was not built to be a single focused consciousness. It grows and builds because it is a multitude of consciousness steeped in the one divine, whether you call it light, spirit, God, Allah, Buddha, whatever. But it is that magnificence that has anchored the truth of who and what we are. And so with that, I am saying, here at Universal Spirit Center, we are taking an amazing trip May 25th through May 29th to Alabama. I'm very proud that our community is stepping up to see American history, to experience our ancestors, to explore how we can move us even further, how we can shine more light and love on our history, and how we can help others open their hearts. We have about 4 or 5 spots left. So be it you or a friend, it's open to anyone. You can reach out to me, Gino, Gino, at universalspiritcenter.org. We've also had people that have gifted contributions that will go toward the trip as well. If you'd like to do that, that's also welcomed and appreciated. This trip to Alabama is an opportunity for us to come closer together as a community. It's an opportunity to talk about the uncomfortable things in the midst of a palpable energy. We will go to Brian Stevenson's, the Equal Initiative Justice Museum, the Legacy Museum. We will walk the bridge in Selma. We will go to Birmingham, to some of the historic places there as well. We will powwow at dinner and openly discuss what we feel, what has moved us, maybe even what has irritated us. But it's this type of conversation that has to be had so that all thoughts can be appreciated. Everyone doesn't have to agree with everyone, but we must be able to sit at the table and be able to express. And when you can experience something for yourself, I was asked this question that when I thought about this trip, well, Gino, why didn't you say go to the African American Museum in DC? And I've been there. I've seen not the entire museum because it takes more than a day. It's fantastic. And it is definitely one that should be visited if you have not. But I wanted to go to Alabama because the vibrational energy is still alive. And I believe that as we participate in this historic journey, we will feel our ancestors. We will feel that consciousness that was striving to birth something new, that is still striving to birth equality now. And it's in our hands. It's in mine, it's in yours. It's in our communities, it's in our world. And so I look forward to sharing this with our community. I am my heart is filled with so much love and appreciation for those that have already gotten their tickets and their hotel rooms, and we are bursting with joy. So it's May 25th through May 29th. Go online, get your ticket. Most of us are coming in very late Wednesday night. Thursday, we'll have a private tour. Friday, we'll have a private tour that we will be driven around to see various historic museums and artifacts. We will walk the bridge on Thursday. Friday, we will go to Birmingham, and we will visit some amazing places there of history. And then Saturday, we will go to the Legacy Museum, which our hotel is, we can walk to it. It's that close. And we have a lot of other things around our hotel. So this is truly exciting and an opportunity to not look at history, but to be a part of history, to be a part of the change. So once again, that's Gino, Gino, at universalspiritcenter.org. And if not you, if you know of a friend, we are very welcoming, whether we know you or not. You will be embraced with love and joy. So I'm going to end with this. As the oldest institutions created and controlled by African Americans, Black churches, are a living testament to the achievement and resiliency of generations in the face of generations in the face of inequality in our society. From the American Meeting House in Boston, where William Lloyd Garrison founded the New England Anti-Slavery Society in 1832, to the St. Luke CME Church in North Carolina, where Nina Simone began her musical career as a young girl in the 30s, to Memphis, where the Claiborne Temple, where civil rights activists organized and created the iconic "I Am a Man," signed during the sanitation workers' strike of 1968. Black American churches have stood at the center, a place of comfort, a place of refuge, and a place of change. And so, in that celebration of women that have also made change in our world, I'm going to show you a little video to celebrate Women's Month.